Rifkins, who would like to ban these sorts of technologies, or of the Bill Joys, who would like to relinquish them, are actually, to follow those paths would be such a tragedy for us. And I'm focusing on biology, the biological sciences. And the reason I'm doing that is because those are going to be the areas that are the most significant. All of the videos crammed into your head, all of the extensions that extend your various powers are going to begin to seem a little secular. It's all done, we are going to alter ourselves every bit as much as we have changed the world around us. And it's going to happen a lot sooner than people imagine. On the way there, it's going to completely revolutionize medicine and healthcare, that's obvious. It's going to change the way we have children. It's going to change the way we manage and alter our emotions. It's going to probably change the human lifespan. It will really make us question what it is to be a human being. And the larger context of this is that there are two unprecedented revolutions that are going on today. The first of them is the obvious one, the Silicon Revolution, which you all are very, very familiar with. It's changing our lives in so many ways, and we'll continue to do that. What the essence of that is that we're taking the sand at our feet, the inert silicon at our feet, and we're breathing a level of complexity into it. Genomics revolution, proteomics, metabolomics, all of these omics that sound so terrific on grants and on business plans. And, you know, what we're doing is we are seizing control of our evolutionary future. I mean, we're essentially using technology to just jam evolution with a fast forward. And it's not at all clear where it's going to take us. But in 5 to 10 years, we're going to start to see some very profound changes.
The way I became acquainted with this whole exotic idea of transhumanism, I was doing research actually. I was a writer and doing research for one of the largest U.S. newspapers out of Oklahoma. And this is maybe 20 some years ago. And doing research on the history of Halloween of all things, and somewhere I came across a term that I had never seen before called transgenics. Now, I didn't know what transgenics was, but you know, I could kind of put two and two together. Trans, genes, that somehow we're talking here about genetic engineering, the altering of genes. And I became fascinated with this idea because back then the science was brand new. It was not, you know, biotechnology, nanotechnology. These were not even terms that existed, but it was following on the heels of the mapping of the human genome, which then was giving both the birth to a promise and also to the sciences that we are going to be able to do things with genetics. We'll be able to heal our bodies, we'll be able to make ourselves stronger. There was a great deal of promise that was emerging quickly, and the science to back it up, at least in theory. And so I started doing research into transgenics, and at the time it wasn't very easy to get information. The internet was brand new. Certainly the science wasn't old enough for there to be much, you know, that had been published in peer-reviewed journals. And I wanted to know what is the good and what is the bad and what is transgenics. And I came to understand that transgenics was simply the crossing over of species barriers. This could be done at the level of just organisms. This could be done all the way up to the level of sentient beings, that you could literally blend one kind of a creature with another creature. Why would we want to do that? What would be the purpose behind it? That was what motivated me. And quickly I began to realize that both the military and also the pharmaceutical industry both had an interest in transgenics. The military because they thought they might be able to create exotic new forms of materials that could be used. For instance, one of the first successes was a project that was funded by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, in which they created transgenic goat spiders, actually spider goats. And the reason that they did this was because they knew that spider silk is amazingly resilient, lightweight, but very strong. And yet it's not very easy, to create a spider farm where you can milk spiders for their silk. But they knew that they could do this with goats. And so that one of the first successes in transgenics was creating a goat which was part spider. It could actually grow spider silk in its milk. And then they could use this for making lightweight bulletproof vests. They could use it for creating cargo nets. But since that time until now, as we may discover later on in this discussion, it has become far more sophisticated in terms of the military's interest and the amount of dollars that are flowing into research that grew out of those early forms of transgenic science. On the other side of transgenics, which is probably the biggest part of where the funding is coming from today, is in the pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaceuticals, why? Because the industry often has to labor with the FDA to try to get permission to do testing of new drug therapies on human subjects. It's very daunting, that task, to try to get a promising new remedy potentially for some kind of debilitating disease, and then to be able to take and start trying that medicine, which is unproven on human test subjects, is not easy to do. Well, the pharmaceutical industry saw right away that they would be able to take animals and put human DNA into the animals, create a human-animal chimera, and then they could work around this problem with getting permission from federal agencies to do human experimentation, and now they could test new drugs in human-animal chimeras to see how the human elements of that creature might respond in a way that they're hoping for with these drug therapies. And that too has also grown a great deal since those original transgenic experiments, in that now, of course, what the public most usually hears about is human-animal chimeras that are being created for the purposes of developing stem cell lines, and then the stem cell lines can be used for testing new therapies in hopes that we're going to lead to cures for a variety of human diseases and ailments. Anyway, it was the discovery of transgenics and my interest in why we would have an interest in funding research into crossing over species barriers that then led me to discover that behind these emerging fields of science was a new cultural movement called transhumanism. And transhumanists are made up today really of all walks of life, everything from college kids to old hippies to academics and professionals. It has become a cultural movement, and it's quickly growing. It's international. Today there's a Christian Transhumanist Association, there's a Buddhist Transhumanist Association, there's a Muslim Transhumanist, there's a Mormon Transhumanist, and then there's just a Transhumanist Association. And for whatever reason, I've had the privilege of somehow becoming connected with some of the leading figures in the world in this area. In fact, Dr. James Hughes, who was the president of the World Transhumanist Association, when he was still the head of the WTA, contacted me and asked if I would come on his syndicated television or his syndicated radio show, which is called Change Surfer Radio. Dr. Hughes is a bioethicist. He teaches at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. He's a sociologist. He was and is really the man, the top shelf, if you will. So I agreed to do his show. And I went on his show, and not very well prepared either, but to debate the ethics of crossing over species in barriers in ways that are completely unnatural. And why would we want to do that? Now, of course, as a Christian, and I would probably still consider myself a conservative Christian, I believe in a divine order. In other words, I believe that God was at the beginning of creation, and God, for whatever reasons, placed barriers between the species and ordered that each kind would only reproduce after its own kind. So in the back of my mind, of course, I want to know, what does God know that we don't know? Why did he do that? But then I would say that even if you didn't believe in divine creation, if you are an evolutionist, what we are doing now was not allowed for by evolution either. Natural selection has not done what we are now doing. And so for me it was a cause for alarm that, you know, they talk about throwing off the balance of nature. We were talking about doing it in ways that a former generation could not have even imagined. So today, the World Transhumanist Association had an original cause. It was really to bring international attention to the idea that through emerging fields of science, we would soon be able to alter what it means to be a human, literally rewrite our DNA, alter ourselves by altering our genetic makeup, create humans, Homo sapiens 2.0. The movement today is often called H+, which just simply means humans plus. A transhuman is in a transitionary state of being. They are human. They are wanting to transition into something else, but ultimately they want to become a post-human, something that has become so radically altered from what we are today as to no longer even be considered to be human. And they imagine creating Homo sapien 2.0 through the use of technology, from neuropharmacology to nanotechnology, genetic engineering, stem cell sciences, robotic assistance, brain-machine interfacing, all of the new fields of science that could have an application for human enhancement is important to the transhumanist movement. Now, the World Transhumanist Association had an original goal of bringing international attention to the movement, and there was a point at which they believed that they had succeeded at doing that. And so they dropped the World Transhumanist Association name and changed it to the IEET, the Institute for Ethics and Emerging Technology. Dr. Hughes is also now the CEO or the president of the IEET, and most of the most well-known names in the world that are also involved in transhumanism, such as Nick Bostrom of Oxford University, are chairs or members of the IEET. So somehow, I never set out to somehow become involved as the nemesis, if you will, of the transhumanist movement, and I've actually became friends with people like Dr. Hughes. He has since been on my radio show. We recently did a series where we were talking about the question, are we alone in the universe, which was raised by the Royal Academy of Scientists out of the UK. And we had him come on and he talked about, the future space travel from a transhumanist point of view and how our bodies could be enhanced to make us more adaptable to zero gravity states and things like that. So, but the movement is very serious and it's being taken very serious in the world today, from academia to university studies, and you'll be surprised to find out the amount of revenue literally in the tens of millions to the billions of dollars that are flowing into this futuristic dream of transhumanism now, and the adaptation of various fields of science which will be used in the very near future to alter what it means to be a human. The science is being developed now according to the world's best and government experts. It's being tested in laboratory settings and is slowly being adapted so that it can be used as a tool for actually altering what it means to be a human.